What happens when one of the biggest stars in entertainment sits down for what should be a friendly interview, only to have it spiral into one of the most intense confrontations daytime television has ever seen? The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife, and what started as casual banter quickly turned into something nobody saw coming. Before we get into this, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below telling us whose side you're on in this whole situation, because trust me, you're going to have an opinion by the end of this. Jennifer Lopez walked onto the View set with her usual confidence, greeting each of the hosts with warm hugs and that signature smile. The audience erupted in applause as she took her seat, and for the first few minutes, everything seemed perfectly normal. Whoopi Goldberg opened with some light questions about her latest projects, and Jennifer was relaxed, laughing easily and sharing behind-the-scenes stories that had the audience completely engaged. But then, Joy Behar leaned forward with a question that immediately shifted the energy in the room. "So Jennifer, I have to ask," Joy began, her tone carrying that edge she's known for. "You've been in the spotlight for decades now, and we've watched your personal life play out very publicly. Multiple marriages, high-profile relationships, and now you're back with Ben Affleck after all these years. Some people are saying it feels like you're stuck in a pattern. What do you say to critics who think you keep making the same mistakes over and over?" The studio went quiet. You could feel the other hosts tense up, and Jennifer's smile faded just slightly. She took a breath before responding. "Well, Joy, I think that's a pretty reductive way to look at someone's life journey," Jennifer said, her voice steady but with a new firmness to it. "We're all growing, we're all learning. The idea that seeking love and connection is somehow a mistake, I fundamentally disagree with that." Joy wasn't backing down. "But you have to admit, there's a pattern here, and I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying what a lot of people are thinking. You go from one relationship to the next, very publicly, very dramatically. At some point, don't you look at yourself and think, maybe I'm the common denominator?" Sarah N. tried to jump in. "I think what Joy is trying to say is no." "Let her finish," Jennifer interrupted, her eyes locked on Joy. "I want to hear exactly what she's trying to say," Joy continued, seeming almost emboldened by Jennifer's directness. "What I'm saying is that you've built this brand around being this romantic, this believer in love, but from the outside looking in, it seems exhausting. It seems like maybe you're chasing something that you're never going to find, because you don't know what you're actually looking for." Jennifer's jaw tightened. "You know what, Joy, I've been nothing but respectful since I sat down here, but I'm not going to sit here and let you psychoanalyze my life like you know me. You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through, what I've survived, what I've built. I'm not saying I know you personally," Joy shot back, "but you put your life out there. You make movies about your relationships, you sing about them, you talk about them in interviews. You can't have it both ways. Wanting the public to celebrate your love life when it's going well, but then getting defensive when people ask legitimate questions about the choices you make." Sunny Hostin tried to interject. "I think we should maybe move on to—" "No, we're not moving on," Jennifer said firmly, her voice rising slightly, "because this is exactly the problem. Women in the public eye, we're constantly judged for living our lives, for being human, for evolving. If I was a man who had multiple relationships, nobody would question it. Nobody would suggest I'm broken or that I don't know what I want. They'd call me a romantic, a lover of life. But because I'm a woman, because I'm open about my feelings, I'm somehow flawed." Joy leaned back in her chair, a slight smirk on her face. "Oh, here we go with the gender card. Jennifer, this isn't about you being a woman. This is about you specifically, and the choices you make. Plenty of women manage their personal lives without it becoming a circus." The audience gasped. Whoopi's eyes widened, and even Alyssa Farah Griffin looked uncomfortable. But Jennifer didn't flinch. "A circus," Jennifer repeated slowly. "My life is a circus to you." "That's not what I meant," Joy started, but Jennifer cut her off. "No, that's exactly what you meant. And you know what's interesting, Joy? You sit here every day talking about politics, about world events, about things you read in the news. But when it comes to interviewing someone face to face, someone who's actually lived through what you're so quick to judge, you don't have the depth or the empathy to have a real conversation. You just want the soundbite. You want the moment that's going to go viral." Joy's expression hardened. "Don't you dare question my journalistic integrity. I've been doing this for longer than you've been famous, and I've interviewed everyone from presidents to activists too. Yes, entertainers like yourself. And part of my job is to ask the questions that need to be asked, even if they make people uncomfortable. There's a difference between asking tough questions and being disrespectful." Jennifer fired back. "You can challenge someone without diminishing their entire life experience. You can be curious without being cruel." "Cruel?" Joy laughed incredulously. "You think I'm being cruel? I'm being honest. Something tells me you're not used to people being honest with you. You're surrounded by yes people, people who tell you everything you do is amazing. And the moment someone gives you real talk, you can't handle it." Jennifer stood up slightly in her seat, her voice shaking with controlled anger. "You want real talk? Let's have real talk. You sit behind this desk and judge people's lives like you're perfect. like you haven't made your own mistakes, like you have all the answers. But the truth is, you're scared. You're scared of women like me who aren't afraid to go after what they want, who aren't afraid to fail, who aren't afraid to get back up and try again. The studio was completely silent now. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of this unprecedented exchange. The other hosts sat frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let it play out. Joy's voice dropped lower, more serious. I'm not scared of you, Jennifer. I'm concerned for you. And I think a lot of people watching are concerned too. They see someone who seems to be desperately searching for validation through relationships, through public displays of affection, through constantly needing to prove something. And I'm asking, as someone who's been around the block a few times myself, when are you going to be enough for yourself? Jennifer's eyes blazed. You think I'm searching for validation? I've sold millions of records, starred in dozens of films, built a business empire, raised 2 children. I've done more in my career than most people dream of doing in a lifetime. So don't you dare suggest that I need a man to validate me. What I choose to do in my personal life, who I choose to love, that's about connection, about partnership, about being human, not about validation. Then why do you need to broadcast it all? Joy pressed. Why does every relationship have to be a media event? Why can't you just live your life privately? Because that's not who I am, Jennifer said, her voice passionate. I'm an artist. I express myself through my work. My life experiences, including my relationships, inform my art, and yes, I share that with the world because that's what artists do. We take our truth and we give it to people, hoping it resonates, hoping it helps someone else feel less alone. You might not understand that because you're a commentator. You talk about other people's lives. I actually live mine, and I create from it. Joy shook her head. That's a convenient excuse for not having boundaries. And you're a convenient example of someone who confuses cynicism with wisdom, Jennifer countered instantly. The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just detonated. Joy's face flushed, and for a moment, she seemed genuinely taken aback. But she recovered quickly, leaning forward with renewed intensity. Cynicism, Joy said, her voice tight. I prefer to call it reality. And the reality is that you've made a career out of selling fairy tales while living in chaos. You want to talk about wisdom? Wisdom is learning from your mistakes, not repeating them with different people and calling it growth. Jennifer laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what I find fascinating, Joy? You've been married 3 times yourself. 3 times, but somehow, when you do it, it's fine. When I fall in love, when I believe in second chances, when I choose to open my heart again after being hurt, I'm the one who's broken. Explain that to me. Explain the double standard. Joy's expression shifted, a flicker of something crossing her face. My personal life has nothing to do with this conversation. Oh, but mine does. Jennifer shot back immediately. You brought up my relationships. You questioned my patterns. So let's talk about patterns. Joy, you've had your own journey, your own relationships that didn't work out. But I don't see anyone calling you desperate or suggesting you're damaged. Why is that? Whoopi finally stepped in, her voice calm but firm. Ladies, I think we need to take a breath here, and no, Whoopi, this is important, Jennifer said, not taking her eyes off Joy. Because this happens to women all the time. We're held to impossible standards. If we're single, we're lonely and tragic. If we date around, we're unstable. If we get married, we're too traditional. If we get divorced, we're failures. And if we dare to try again, to believe in love after heartbreak, we're delusional. There's no winning. Sarah Ann nodded slowly. I think Jennifer has a point about the double standards women face, especially in the public eye. Joy waved her hand dismissively. This isn't about double standards. This is about Jennifer specifically. And I'm sorry, but when you've been engaged 6 times, married 4 times, and you're constantly in the tabloids with some new romance, people are going to talk. That's just facts. Those numbers aren't even accurate, Jennifer said sharply. But even if they were, so what? So what if I've loved and lost multiple times? So what if I've taken risks with my heart? At least I'm living. At least I'm trying. What's the alternative? Joy. Closing myself off, becoming bitter and judgmental about other people's choices because I'm too afraid to make my own. Joy's eyes flashed. I am not bitter, and I'm certainly not afraid. What I am is realistic. I've been around long enough to see when someone is on a hamster wheel, running and running, but never actually getting anywhere. And from where I'm sitting, that's exactly what you're doing. From where you're sitting, Jennifer repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You're sitting behind a desk. Joy. You're not in the arena. You're not putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, taking chances. You're playing it safe, taking shots at people who are actually living their lives fully, messily, authentically. Sunny tried again to redirect. I think what might be helpful here is to acknowledge that both of you are coming from different perspectives, and maybe different perspectives. Jennifer interrupted, her frustration boiling over. No, this is about respect. This is about Joy deciding that my life is up for public dissection and judgment, without any consideration for the fact that I'm a real person with real feelings. Every relationship I've had, I went into it with hope, with love, with genuine belief that it could work. And yes, some of them didn't. And yes, that was painful. And yes, I had to pick myself up and keep going. But I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not going to apologize for being a romantic, for believing in love, for trying again. Joy crossed her arms. Nobody's asking you to apologize. What I'm asking is whether you've ever stopped to really examine why you keep ending up in the same place. Because, Jennifer, you can call it being a romantic all you want, but there's a difference between being hopeful and being reckless. Reckless, Jennifer said quietly, dangerously. You think I'm reckless with my heart? I think you're impulsive, Joy said bluntly. I think you fall fast and hard. You make grand public declarations. And then when it doesn't work out, you're on to the next one. And I think somewhere in that cycle, you've lost sight of who you are outside of a relationship. Jennifer's voice rose again. You don't know anything about who I am. You don't know what I've built, what I've accomplished on my own. I've been a single mother. I've run companies. I've created art that has touched millions of people. I am not defined by my relationships, Joy, but I also don't hide them or pretend they're not part of my life. Because they are. Love is part of life. Connection is part of life. And I refuse to diminish that or act like it's something to be ashamed of. Alyssa Farah Griffin spoke up tentatively. I think there's something to be said for the fact that Jennifer is willing to be vulnerable publicly. In a world where everyone is so guarded, there's something brave about that. Joy turned to Alyssa. Brave, or attention-seeking. Because, let's be honest, every relationship becomes a media spectacle. The paparazzi photos, the Instagram posts, the coordinated announcements, at a certain point, you have to ask whether it's genuine or whether it's content. Jennifer slammed her hand on the armrest of her chair. Content. You think my relationships are content? You think I fell in love with Ben again for publicity? You think I went through a divorce, through heartbreak, through rebuilding my life, for attention? How dare you? How absolutely dare you suggest that my feelings, my experiences, my pain, is manufactured for cameras? I'm not saying your feelings aren't real, Joy said, though her tone suggested otherwise. I'm saying the way you package and present them to the world raises questions. You can't blame people for being skeptical when everything is so perfectly curated, so strategically released. Jennifer stood up completely now, her hands trembling. You want to know what's strategic? This interview. You bringing me on here under the guise of a friendly conversation, only to ambush me with judgment and accusations. You wanted your viral moment, Joy. You wanted to be the one who made Jennifer Lopez crack. Well, congratulations. You're getting exactly what you wanted. Joy stood as well, facing Jennifer across the table. I didn't ambush you. I asked you questions that millions of people want answers to, and the fact that you're this defensive tells me I hit a nerve. Maybe instead of attacking me, you should ask yourself why these questions bother you so much. They bother me because they're rooted in misogyny, Jennifer said, her voice shaking with emotion. They're rooted in this idea that women, especially women of a certain age, should just settle down, stay quiet, stop believing in passion and romance and connection, that we should accept loneliness or mediocrity rather than keep searching for real partnership. And I reject that. I completely reject it. Joy's voice was cold now. This has nothing to do with your age or your gender. This has to do with your choices. And choices have consequences. If you choose to live your life in public, people are going to have opinions. If you choose to get married multiple times, people are going to question your judgment. That's not misogyny. That's accountability. Accountability. Jennifer's voice cracked. Accountability. For what? For loving people. For trying to build a life with someone. For believing that I deserve happiness and partnership. What exactly am I being held accountable for? Joy. For the pattern, Joy insisted. For doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Einstein called that insanity. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steel. Don't you dare quote Einstein at me, and don't you dare call me insane for having hope. You know what the real insanity is? Sitting in judgment of other people's lives when you haven't walked a single step in their shoes. The real insanity is thinking that cynicism is somehow more evolved than optimism. Whoopi stood up, her voice authoritative. Okay, I think we need to take a commercial break. No, both Jennifer and Joy said simultaneously. Jennifer continued, wiping at her eyes but refusing to sit back down. We're not taking a break. We're going to finish this conversation, because I want everyone watching to understand what just happened here. I came on this show to talk about my work, to connect with the audience, to share my journey, and instead, I was attacked for daring to believe in love. I was mocked for being open with my feelings. I was judged by someone who doesn't know me, has never lived my life, and has no right to tell me how I should feel or what I should do. Joy's voice was sharp. I have every right to ask questions. That's literally my job. Your job is to ask questions, Jennifer said, her voice shaking but controlled. Not to prosecute, not to degrade, not to reduce someone's entire existence to a punchline. There's a difference between journalism and cruelty. And you crossed that line the moment you suggested my life was a circus. Joy threw her hands up. Oh my God, you're still on that? It was a figure of speech. No, it wasn't. Jennifer shot back. It was a calculated insult designed to belittle me. And the thing is, Joy, I've dealt with people like you my entire career. People who underestimated me, who thought I was just a pretty face, who assumed I didn't have substance or depth. I proved them all wrong. I built an empire. I became a mogul. I raised my children to be strong and kind, and I did it while dealing with constant criticism, constant scrutiny, constant judgment from people who will never understand what it takes to be in this position. Sunny Hostin leaned forward, her voice gentle. Jennifer, I think what you're expressing is something a lot of women relate to. The feeling of being constantly judged, constantly having to prove yourself. Exactly, Jennifer said, turning to Sunny gratefully. And it never ends. It doesn't matter how successful you are, how much you've accomplished, how much you've given. There's always someone waiting to tear you down, especially if you're a woman who refuses to play small. Joy scoffed. Playing small? You're one of the most famous people on the planet. You're hardly playing small. Fame isn't the same as being respected, Jennifer said quietly. Fame isn't the same as being treated with dignity. I can have all the success in the world, but if people like you are still questioning my worth, my intelligence, my ability to make decisions about my own life, then what does any of it mean? Joy's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. Look, I'm not trying to question your worth. I'm trying to understand your choices. And maybe I came at it the wrong way, but my intentions weren't malicious. Jennifer shook her head. Your intentions don't erase the impact. You don't get to hurt someone and then say it's fine because you didn't mean it that way. Words matter. Joy, the way you speak to people matters. And the platform you have, the audience that trusts you, that means you have a responsibility to use your voice carefully. Alyssa spoke up again. I think that's fair. We all have a responsibility, especially in media, to think about how our words affect people. Joy turned to Alyssa, irritation flashing across her face. So now, I'm the villain. I ask one tough question, and suddenly, I'm the bad guy. It wasn't one question, Jennifer corrected. It was question after question, each one more invasive than the last. And it wasn't about my work, or my projects, or anything I'm actually here to discuss. It was about dissecting my personal life, my relationships, my choices, as if they're public property. Joy sat back down heavily. They are public. Jennifer, you made them public. Being public doesn't mean being available for destruction, Jennifer said, finally sitting back down as well, though her posture remained tense. Yes, I share my life. Yes, I'm open about my experiences. But there's a difference between sharing and being eviscerated. There's a difference between transparency and having no boundaries respected whatsoever. The audience, which had been silent throughout most of this exchange, suddenly burst into applause. Jennifer looked out at them, surprised, and her eyes glistened with fresh tears. Whoopi spoke carefully. I think what we're seeing here is a really important conversation about how we treat people, especially women, in the public eye. And Jennifer, you've been very honest about your feelings, and I appreciate that. Jennifer nodded, composing herself. I appreciate that, Whoopi. And look, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I haven't made mistakes. Of course I have. We all have. But I'm tired of being defined by those mistakes. I'm tired of having my romantic life be the only thing people want to talk about, as if that's all I am. I'm a mother. I'm an artist. I'm a businesswoman. I'm a philanthropist. I am so many things beyond who I'm dating or married to. Sarah N. nodded enthusiastically. And that's what we should be celebrating. Your multifaceted career, your longevity in an industry that's brutal to women, especially as they age. Joy finally spoke again, her voice quieter now. For the record, I do respect your career. I think you're incredibly talented. I think you've worked hard for everything you have. My questions weren't meant to diminish that. Jennifer looked at her for a long moment. Then what were they meant to do, Joy? Because from where I was sitting, it felt like you were trying to make me feel small. It felt like you were trying to embarrass me in front of millions of people. Joy sighed. I was trying to have a real conversation. I was trying to get past the polish and the PR and talk about real life. But maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I didn't consider how it would feel from your perspective. Maybe. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. Joy, you compared my life to a circus. You suggested I'm insane. You questioned my ability to learn from my experiences. Those aren't maybe moments. Those are definitive attacks. Joy was silent for a moment, and the studio held its breath. Finally, she spoke. You're right. I went too far. I let my opinions about celebrity culture cloud my judgment about you as an individual. And that wasn't fair. Jennifer looked genuinely surprised. The other hosts exchanged glances, clearly not expecting this turn. I appreciate you saying that, Jennifer said slowly, but I need you to understand something. This isn't just about me. When you attack me for being romantic, for believing in love, for trying again after failure, you're sending a message to every woman watching that they should be ashamed of those same impulses, that they should guard their hearts, lower their expectations, settle for less than they deserve. Joy leaned forward. That's not what I meant to communicate. But it is what you communicated, Jennifer insisted, and that's why this matters so much. Because young women are watching, divorced women are watching, single mothers are watching, and they need to see that it's okay to keep hoping, to keep trying, to keep believing in the possibility of love and partnership. They don't need to see me being shamed for doing exactly that. Sunny nodded vigorously. That's a powerful point, Jennifer. The narrative around women and relationships is so often about shame and judgment rather than empowerment and choice. Jennifer turned to the camera, speaking directly to the audience at home. If you're watching this and you've been through heartbreak, if you've been through divorce, if you've loved and lost and you're wondering if you should try again, I want you to know that your heart is not broken. Your hope is not foolish. Your desire for connection is not a weakness. It's the most human thing about you. And don't let anyone, including people on television, make you feel otherwise. The studio audience erupted in applause again, many standing. Joy watched this unfold, her expression complex, unreadable. When the applause died down, Whoopi spoke. I think we've all learned something today about respect, about empathy, about how we talk to and about each other. Jennifer, thank you for being so honest and vulnerable with us. Jennifer nodded. Thank you for having me, even though this wasn't quite what I expected. Joy spoke one more time. Jennifer, I may not agree with all your choices, but I respect your right to make them. And I respect your courage in calling me out when I crossed a line. That takes guts. Jennifer met her eyes. We can disagree, Joy, that's fine. But we have to disagree with respect. We have to remember that we're talking about real lives, real feelings, real people, not just headlines or gossip or entertainment. Agreed, Joy said quietly. The tension in the room had shifted, not entirely resolved but transformed into something more thoughtful, more human. Alyssa smiled slightly. Well, this has certainly been one of the most memorable interviews we've ever had on this show. Jennifer laughed, finally relaxing a bit. Memorable is one word for it. Whoopi grinned. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Jennifer's actual projects, the things she came here to discuss in the first place. As the show cut to commercial, Jennifer and Joy remained seated, the weight of everything that had been said hanging between them. The cameras might have stopped rolling, but the impact of this conversation would continue long after the broadcast ended. What started as a routine interview had turned into a cultural moment, a flashpoint in the ongoing conversation about how we treat women, how we judge their choices, and whether we're willing to extend grace and understanding to those who live their lives in the public eye. So what do you think? Was Joy out of line with her questions, or was she just doing her job? And did Jennifer overreact, or was she right to stand up for herself? Drop a comment below and let us know where you stand. And make sure you're subscribed because we're going to keep bringing you these moments that everyone is talking about. Whose side are you on in this clash? Team Jennifer or Team Joy?